The email arrived and with it, a wave of anticipation. I'd been waiting for this moment, replaying the past month's choices in my mind, wondering what the results would reveal about my health. "Your lab results are ready." Those words stared back at me, both inviting and intimidating. My heart fluttered, curiosity mixed with apprehension. I could feel my pulse quicken as I hovered over the email, uncertain whether I wanted to know the truth or keep it hidden a little longer. For 30 days I'd eaten only meat, fish, and eggs. Every meal was a deliberate experiment, a test of willpower and a challenge to conventional wisdom. No plants, no bread, just animal foods. I'd cut out everything I'd been told was essential: fruits, vegetables, grains, replacing them with steak, salmon, and omelets. Friends warned me my arteries would clog, my cholesterol would skyrocket. They looked at me with concern, some even with disbelief, convinced I was risking my health for the sake of an experiment. I clicked the link, bracing for disaster. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios, imagining numbers off the charts and lectures from my doctor. But the numbers surprised me. My triglycerides had dropped, lower than they'd been in years. I blinked, double-checking to make sure I was reading it right. And my HDL, the good cholesterol, had risen. The very markers I'd been told to watch had improved, not worsened. Instead of a health crisis, my results were better than before. Relief washed over me, mixed with a sense of disbelief and excitement. This defied logic and challenged everything I'd believed about diet and cholesterol. I'd expected a warning, maybe even a scolding, but instead, I found evidence that didn't fit the narrative I'd always heard. How could a diet so rich in saturated fat improve my blood markers? Was there something missing from the story we've been told for decades? My experiment had become a deeper investigation into the complex relationship between food and health. I started jotting down questions, determined to dig deeper into the science behind these results. Was this a fluke, or was the mainstream narrative about fat and cholesterol incomplete? I found myself searching for studies, reading articles, and questioning long-held beliefs. The evidence on my screen contradicted decades of warnings. It made me wonder how much of what we accept as truth is based on tradition, rather than evidence. Maybe the link between eating meat and high cholesterol isn't as simple as we think. My journey had just begun, and I was determined to find out what else I might discover. Starting this all-meat diet felt like stepping off a nutritional cliff. As a doctor and journalist, I'd always advocated for variety: plants, fiber, healthy oils. The carnivore diet was the opposite: no plants, just meat, fish, and eggs. I worried about scurvy, constipation, and heart attacks. Friends painted a grim picture, and my own skepticism was loud. I'd spent years studying the benefits of fiber and plant nutrients. Abandoning them seemed reckless. But curiosity won out. Online, people reported dramatic health improvements. I was wary of anecdotes, but the sheer volume was compelling. I decided to be my own guinea pig, tracking everything. The only way to know the truth was to let my own blood work tell the story. I was ready to follow the data wherever it led. To truly understand my results, I had to look beyond the headlines and common fears about cholesterol. For years we've been told to avoid cholesterol at all costs, but is it really the villain it's made out to be? To get to the truth, we need to demystify cholesterol and see it for what it really is: a vital substance in our bodies, not just a number on a lab report. Cholesterol isn't a poison, it's actually essential for life. It forms the structure of every cell membrane in your body and is the building block for important hormones like estrogen, testosterone, and cortisol. Without cholesterol, our bodies simply couldn't function. Surprisingly, most of the cholesterol in your body is made by your liver, not absorbed from the foods you eat. This means your body carefully regulates cholesterol production, regardless of your diet. Doctors often talk about LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, and HDL, the good cholesterol. But the reality is far more complex than these simple labels suggest. LDL's job is to carry cholesterol to cells that need it for repair and growth. Problems only arise when LDL particles become damaged, often due to inflammation in the body, which can then lead to plaque buildup in arteries. HDL, on the other hand, acts like a cleanup crew, gathering up excess cholesterol and transporting it back to the liver for recycling or disposal. This process helps keep our arteries clear and healthy. But cholesterol isn't the only number that matters. Triglycerides, another type of blood fat, can be a warning sign. High triglyceride levels often point to a diet high in sugar and refined carbohydrates, not just fat. Inflammation is the real enemy here. It damages the lining of our arteries, making it easier for LDL to become trapped and turn into a problem. Chronic inflammation is what truly sets the stage for heart disease. That's why a heart-healthy diet should focus on reducing inflammation by eating more vegetables, healthy fats, and whole foods, rather than obsessing over cholesterol numbers alone. When I looked at my own results, I realized they needed to be interpreted through this new lens. It wasn't just about whether my cholesterol was high or low. The real question was, what was my overall metabolic health like? Was there evidence of inflammation? These factors matter far more than a single cholesterol number. The real story is much more nuanced than the old myth that fat clogs arteries. Science now shows it's about the bigger picture, how our bodies handle fats, sugars, and inflammation together. My experiment was about challenging these outdated assumptions and seeing what really happens when you look at all the factors, not just cholesterol. In the end, the numbers told a different story, one that's more hopeful and more complicated than we've been led to believe. My carnivore diet was simple, but I focused on quality. No processed meats, just grass-fed beef, lamb, fatty fish, and eggs. Organ meats, especially liver, became a weekly staple for nutrients. I cooked with animal fats, no vegetable oils. I also practiced intermittent fasting, eating within an 8-hour window. This helped my body switch to burning fat for fuel. Eliminating seed oils was crucial. They're linked to inflammation. My meals were basic: meat, fish, eggs, and animal fats. No sauces, no processed foods, just whole ingredients. The goal was to see the pure effect of animal foods on my health. A key part of my experiment was avoiding inflammatory foods. I cut out industrial seed oils, which are high in omega-6 fats and linked to inflammation. Sugar and refined carbs were also eliminated. No blood sugar spikes, no insulin surges. My body shifted into ketosis, burning fat for fuel. Ketones may help reduce inflammation. This strict elimination meant no processed foods, sauces, or takeaways. Cooking every meal from scratch gave me total control. It was challenging, but necessary for a clean experiment. At the end of 30 days, I'd know exactly what this diet did to my body. No hidden additives, just results. When I sat down to analyze my latest blood work, I was honestly surprised by what I found. The numbers told a story that went far beyond what I expected, and each result seemed to reveal something new about how my body was responding to the changes I'd made in my diet and lifestyle. My triglycerides, which are a type of fat found in the blood, and often linked to heart disease risk, dropped significantly, from 0.9 to 0.5 mmol/L. What's fascinating is that this happened even though I was eating more fat than before. It turns out my body was actually burning fat more efficiently, rather than storing it. At the same time, my HDL, the so-called good cholesterol, rose from 1.5 to 1.8 mmol/L. Higher HDL is generally associated with better heart health, as it helps remove excess cholesterol from the bloodstream. This was a reassuring sign that my cardiovascular system was benefiting from the changes. Even more important, the ratio of triglycerides to HDL, which many experts consider a key predictor of heart disease risk, improved dramatically. This ratio is often a better indicator of metabolic health than any single cholesterol number. However, not all the news was straightforward. My LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, did increase, rising from 3.2 to 4.1 mmol/L. Traditionally, this would be seen as a red flag. On paper, that spike in LDL might seem alarming, especially if you're used to hearing that lower is always better. But as I dug deeper, I realized that context is everything when it comes to interpreting these numbers. My overall profile showed low inflammation, low triglycerides, and high HDL. When these factors are present, the risk associated with higher LDL may not be the same as it is for someone with poor metabolic health. In fact, some leading experts now argue that higher LDL in the context of a healthy, low-inflammation body isn't necessarily dangerous. It's a more nuanced picture than we've been led to believe. One of the most telling markers in my blood work was my C-reactive protein, or CRP, which is a well-known indicator of inflammation in the body. Chronic inflammation is linked to a host of diseases, so this number is crucial. My CRP dropped from 0.8 to 0.5 mg/L, showing that inflammation in my body actually decreased, even though I was eating a meat-heavy diet, which some people assume would have the opposite effect. Looking at all these results together, the overall picture was clear. My metabolic health had improved and inflammation was lower than before. These are both strong indicators of long-term health. The rise in LDL was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Focusing on a single number can be misleading if you don't consider the full context of your health. My results challenged the conventional wisdom about cholesterol and heart health, making me question some of the standard advice we've all heard for years. Ultimately, it wasn't just about cholesterol, it was about the whole metabolic picture and how all these markers interact to reflect true health. The data spoke for itself, showing that health is more complex than any single number, and that sometimes the results can surprise you in the best possible way. The numbers were fascinating, but how I felt mattered too. The first week was tough. Keto flu hit hard: fatigue, headaches, irritability. Hydration and extra salt helped, and symptoms faded after a few days. Then my energy stabilized. No more afternoon slumps or sugar cravings. Hunger signals became clear and manageable. I ate 2 meals a day, felt satisfied, and stopped thinking about food. Mental clarity improved. No more brain fog, better focus, stable mood. Emotional ups and downs tied to blood sugar swings disappeared. The steady focus was the most pleasant surprise. Socially, the diet was isolating. I missed sharing meals and the taste of vegetables. The monotony was real, but the physical benefits were undeniable. The big question: could these benefits last on a less restrictive, low-carb diet? The experiment showed what was possible, but sustainability was another matter. Still, the sense of well-being was profound. The carnivore diet's effects were immediate. I lost over 4 kilograms, mostly from my waist, suggesting visceral fat loss. My sleep improved, deeper, more restorative, and I woke up refreshed. Wearable data confirmed more deep and REM sleep. Mental clarity was sharper. My brain felt like it was running on clean fuel. Ketones may have boosted my focus and productivity. Distractions faded, and work performance improved. The combination of weight loss, better sleep, and sharper focus created a positive feedback loop. Feeling better physically made it easier to stick to the diet. The short-term benefits were undeniable. Removing processed foods, sugar, and seed oils had a powerful impact. Can you eat only meat and avoid high cholesterol? My experiment suggests it's complicated. My LDL rose, but every other marker, triglycerides, HDL, inflammation, improved. It's vital to look at the whole metabolic picture, not just one number. If you're curious, be methodical. Get baseline blood work, focus on quality meats, and cut out seed oils and sugar. After a month, retest and assess how you feel and what your markers show. If your health improves, you may be on the right track. If not, reconsider. There's no one-size-fits-all diet. I didn't become a lifelong carnivore. I missed vegetables too much. But the experiment shattered my old beliefs about fat, meat, and cholesterol. The real lesson: focus on eliminating processed sugars and inflammatory oils. Sometimes what you remove from your diet matters more than what you add.